have Tracy Fortino with me. She's the Director of Sustainability and ESG at First West Credit Union. Tracy, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here today, Lawrie.
No, you're welcome. So tell us a little bit about First West, how large First West is, location, however you want to describe it is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. First West is a credit union in British Columbia, and we actually have a really unique model. We call it a multi-brand model, where we have First West as the parent company, and then we have 4 regional brands, as we call them, our member-facing brands, and they're located on Enderby. We have a branch there in our Valley First region, which is the Okanagan, in the Envision Financial region, which is the Lower Mainland, Vancouver, from Delta all the way to Hope, and then we have our Island Savings region, which covers the Vancouver Island.
Okay, and then when you kind of add up the members, how many members would that be between all of the brands?
We have over 250,000 members, and that's between the 4 brands. We have 46 branches, and we have roughly just over $16 billion in assets under management.
Oh, that's great. So. And so the background of the branding model is these, like Enderby, for example, was a standalone credit union, joined the First West family. Have I got that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So your model is you can join and maybe you're sharing some back office stuff, but locally you keep brand and maybe some other things to go with that. Is that correct as well?
That is correct. So every regional brand has a leadership team. So we have a president, we have sales leaders, we also have employees within each region who work under that brand. And really it allows for us to have local decision making. So we don't have decisions being made far away out of context. We actually have decisions being made with an understanding of the needs or challenges or benefits of helping a community as well.
Okay, that's a very unique model. I like it. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, because I think there's lots of credit union in your past, and then you have this new role. So could you just give us a little snapshot of your career journey, and then we want to talk about this great director role that you have.
Okay. Absolutely. My career journey started in the late 90s, actually. I started at a local credit union. I got a job as a teller, or member services advisor now, I guess. And thinking honestly, it was a part-time gig while I went to university. Quickly realized credit union system and the difference that I could make within the credit unions, and moved into a community investment role. After that, moved into a marketing role, and actually took a bit of a stint and stepped away from the credit unions for about 5 to 7 years. Decided to work for a nonprofit, and as well as decided to work for municipal government and go back to school. Really, though, my heart, I realized my heart was always in the credit union system, because it was a little bit a mix of public and private to me, being member owned, being part of an organization that actually was doing things for people over profits, like municipal government. But having been exposed to programs that help our communities, like nonprofit work or working with the YMCA, that really still resonated with me. So I always have viewed it as being the best of both worlds of nonprofit and public. And so nice. 6 years ago, I joined First West in a marketing role. And I've loved it from day one, and I can easily say that. And really, for me, it truly is about what I give, what I'm able to contribute to this organization, which as well as contributes to our communities and our members. So less than a year ago, I moved into this role of Director of Sustainability and ESG, which is Environmental, Social, and Governance.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very excited to be part of this role. It's new here at First West, but again, the concept is not new to credit unions, because credit unions, by their creation and by their nature, are all about members, our local communities, and seeing what we can do to help and make really positive impacts. My role now is to say, here are the positive impacts we want to make, but how are we actually showing that we are moving the needle, and taking various frameworks and helping our organization work through our business, our strategy, any of our tactics with an ESG lens. That for me is has been very exciting to this day. And looking at how excited everyone within the organization is to take us to that next level and look at any of their work through this lens has been exciting, has been inspirational, and has been impactful in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. So if through that lens, is there an example you could give me of a particular initiative that you took that lens, looked through it? What did that lead you to decide, or were there changes that you made? What kind of came out of that process, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, absolutely. One example, we are still fairly new down this journey of actually moving it into our operations. But the way we got started was actually by getting an ESG rating. And that lens that we used was we had a choice between being ESG rated by a Sustainalytics company, by a company called Sustainalytics, or B Corp. And we actually chose to be rated by Sustainalytics. And the reasons I would say behind that were actually not about the number for us itself. And as I explain it, for us, it really is about what we were going to learn from this rating and the learnings that we've taken to improve ourselves, our operations, our processes, our policies have been tremendous. The first year that we got rated, we were rated the lower the better. Let me clarify, like a golf score, the lower the better. We were rated low at 18.9.
Okay.
This second year in 2022, we got rated again, and we're 16.7. So dropping those few points was a huge difference for us in the organization. But it wasn't the number itself; it was actually what we did to achieve that recognition and the learning for us to say these were actually very impactful, and they're actually going to be better for our members and our communities, and help with our transparency and help with our growth. So that, I would say, is how we got our start in this, because making quantifiable measurements and commitments is really what's going to show us how we move the needle and make those impacts. So that was our initial start, and we've really just continued down that path of learning around how can we continue to be better, and how can we continue to be transparent, and how can we continue to lead within the credit union system, because we are the third largest credit union in British Columbia, and how can we share that knowledge with other credit unions and help them on their journey as well.
Oh, great. So when you lowered your score, which is actually improving your score, can you talk about what you did to move the needle?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would say a great majority of our score being lowered was as a result of policies and processes we put in place or addressed, maybe fine-tuned perhaps as well as initiatives we had focused around our people and our employees. I think there was, we had made a conscious effort over the last few years to look at, how can we be better for our employees who are our members and who are also active members in the community. And for us, that did prove to be both a challenge, but a challenge we accepted and we actually have thrived in. So I would say that has been a tremendous amount of work organizationally that has gone into moving that needle. And that's a great example to me of ESG practices and frameworks. Yeah. They're all done with the idea that you can show your impact, so you can either keep going, or if you need to look at where you need to change, you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, so I'd imagine from an ESG perspective, you're measuring lots of initiatives, and you're looking at policies and saying, are these ESG friendly? Am I on the right track there?
You are, yes.
Okay.
Are they ESG friendly? And in terms of any, which of the environmental, social, or governance areas are we looking at within this policy? Or are we looking at multiple ones within the policies?
Right. From a layperson's perspective, so if I, want to find out how progressive an organization is on ESG, is that something I could look at? Like, as a consumer, can I find out your rating? And is it kind of that seal of approval? Like, we've done the work to tell you these guys do great work in ESG. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
The general public can look at these ratings. They're public. And again, part of the reason we decided to do this rating is it's a public rating. You can actually see what are the material risks the organization has if you're an investor, for example, although we don't really have investors. But again, for us, it's really about showing that we want to be transparent. We want to move the needle. So anyone could look at our rating. You can look at a bunch of ratings, other organizations, and it actually it can describe where you line up if you're interested in another organization, where we would line up with that. And really what it is, it's a thoughtful methodology and approach to using a standard framework, so measuring apples to apples,
right,
and allowing organizations to go through the process to see where do they measure, where are they holding up against, where do they need to improve. And those practices are, they're based on research, they're based on a scientific methodology. So while I believe that organizations can do B Corp or they can do the Sustainalytics ESG rating, it definitely depends on what they want to get out of that, and where they want to move that to moving forward.
And I think it's handy because increasingly, younger consumers, the Zeds and the Alphas after them they want to see if an organization said it is doing good work, prove it. So I really applaud you on finding that measurement, which basically is independent of you, that says we're going to look at this organization from the outside, compare it to others, and do some sort of ranking or scoring. So, wow. Was that a large, fairly involved process to go through to get there?
It wasn't the initial. So I would say what I would like to mention is that this process was started by one of our employee network groups, which is called the Young Leaders Group. So it was actually brought to us moving forward, was brought by the young leaders. And so they had started the initial, they'd started the initial movement to saying, we believe that we should become rated by an independent organization. And so they went through and made the recommendations and did the research and then worked with Sustainalytics around our initial rating. From there, we took a lot of those learnings and we applied them into our next rating the year after, and we will continue to do that into our third year's rating.
Well, that's really nice that it came kind of from the ground up from younger leaders. So that's a great approach. And then your role as director is kind of is making sure that the ESG topic is front and center. And I imagine sitting down with different teams and groups and kind of talking about it and ensuring that we can keep that rating lower and lower. Am I right in that?
Exactly. I would say my role is that education, that consultant internally to talk about what lenses have we looked at? Have you looked at other lenses? Here's a way that we can continue to be better and provide recommendations with our various leaders in all of our departments, as well as educate. I would say building capacity within the ESG space is very important to First West to ensure that this is integrated within our entire organization. And it shouldn't just be held with one person or one department. Everyone has a role. And what I've really been excited about here at First West is everyone has really utilized a voice in it as well. And so the comments, the questions, the feedback is something that I take very seriously, but also use it really and look to move it forward, because it's not supposed to be done in isolation. ESG isn't a department. It's really more that framework in which we hope that a lot of our employees will look at their work, whether it be something from a frontline staff member all the way to someone who could, is leading our innovation and strategy team or our product team. So looking at it from their lens is very important as well.
And you're ideally suited for that, especially with your background. And I know you to be a great caring, listening person. So you're in the right role. Speaking of young leaders, well, you're younger than me. What would you say for your success in your career, if you could point to some key ingredients that have helped you kind of advance and move up in sort of your leadership abilities?
I would say, for me, it has been a reflective period in my life. Being here at First West, I've really realized how I've moved along in my career journey here. One of my key ingredients and is acknowledging where my strengths are. I often tell my kids about, what's your superpower? I don't tell them, I ask them, what's your superpower? What do you believe in? Holding to your own values, making sure you're with an organization that aligns with your values only contributes to the success of your work, or in this case, it was my work. I would say my key ingredients were, one, listening. Absolutely. I recently heard a quote from a colleague that said, "You're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason." And so we had a little giggle because we really knew that was true. So listening is very important. Within the credit union system, curiosity, asking questions, being very curious about how things are done, why they're done that way. Where did we get that information? Can we bring in new information and new knowledge or research that's been done over time? So I talk about listening, I talk about curiosity, and I talk about values alignment and where that is very important to an individual, and making sure that an organization you're with really does align. And those three things, I would say, have been my secret sauce over the last number of years, especially since joining First West. From a leadership perspective, I once also heard that there are people who go to organizations for what they get, or there are people who go to organizations for what they give. You get a salary, you get benefits. That's probably what brings you into an organization. But what keeps you into an organization, or what has kept me here truly, is what I've been able to give. So much so that being involved in our employee value proposition, ours here is the power of you, and it's something I continue to really advocate for, because you can hold as much knowledge as you want, but you can actually can share it, you can use it, you can move forward on projects without people continuing to second guess you. They actually really support you in that innovation. And within the credit union system, I think that's hugely important, the collaboration component as well. So I think listening really gets you to a good place, and continuing to innovate in a safe space really increases that innovation and creativity.
Yeah, I think I may know where you go in answering this question, but if you kind of look into the future with your crystal ball, what are 1 to 2 issues that you think credit unions will need to address in order to keep relevant with, the next generation of consumers and, and the one following them?
Oh, for sure. I would say looking at various, in my new role, I would say this, looking at ESG efforts in every organization and staying relevant and realizing the opportunity that an organization has in the credit union system. And not necessarily viewing a regulatory component as something that is a must-have, looking at it from an opportunities perspective and being able to tell the narrative to your members and your potential stakeholders about how credit unions have truly made an impact as long as they've existed. And now we're looking at how do we even continue to make more of a meaningful impact is definitely, for me, one of the trends and issues I see.
Yeah.
I might say 3, though. Can I say 3?
You can say as many as you'd like.
The second would be, continue to embrace the digital transformation. And I don't mean that by just, having an app or having a great or having an online experience, but really digging into that and servicing members where, when, and how they like to be serviced in the digital form, because it's different for everyone, and their capacity or desire to use a certain channel comes from a certain place that they're comfortable with. And I think if we educate and share those tools out and invest in those tools, that's always going to be something that's going to create that continued longevity in the credit union system.
That's great. This is a bit of a non sequitur question, but we're in the financial industry. It's about money. Mm-hmm. How would you describe your relationship with money?
Oh, how would I describe my relationship with money? I would say, in my time working with various credit unions, my relationship with money went from very novice to one where I'm not going to say I'm an expert because I don't have a financial planning designation, but I would say I am more confident, more optimistic with how I view money. And I would say it's because of the education piece. Having understanding that plans aren't a bad thing. Having a budget is not a bad thing. It's all about, really, at the end of the day, my own personal feelings are derived really from that education piece that I have, and I've been fortunate to have access to that education piece within the credit union system. But more importantly, know it's there. I think that for me, had I not known it was there, I'd probably be in a very different place.
Yeah, and I do think credit unions, and I'm sure First West does as well, of stepping up to help educate people earlier about money. It is something that isn't always talked about in schools or at home, and I think that is a role credit unions can play. So, no, that's great. So that's the end of the formal questions. I do have a couple fun ones for you. Are you up for that?
Oh, I'm always up for this, Lawrie. This is great.
Let's do it. Okay. Let's do it. So I have a little vault here because these questions are golden, so we got to keep them under lock and key. There we go. You heard the vault. I'm opening it for the special Tracy questions. Here we go. All right. So If you could trade places with any other person for a week, they could be famous or not, they could be alive or not with us, and it could be real or fictional, who would you choose and why?
If I could trade places with anybody for a week,
yeah,
I would trade places with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir here.
I am a fan, not because he's just famous and funny. I would say I am a fan, and I would love to view his world for a week because of seemingly the great things he does for Canadians, I would actually argue, and nonprofit organizations. I would look, in my week, I would look at how's he making decisions? Are they on the whim? Sometimes it kind of seems like these great, I'm making a $2 million donation to food banks because I understand. He also helps small businesses, even on his social media, recommending restaurants in Vancouver. He has been someone that has stayed true to his values as a Canadian and is proud of that, while also continuing to do work and make an impact with children and families and hospitals in the States. So he is someone I would trade. I would definitely switch for a week with.
That's a great choice. And he also has just an excellent sense of humor. Yes. It's awesome.
Outside, awesome. And he's very relatable. I think that's, for me, that being authentic and being relatable are very important, two very important traits.
That's cool. That's a great answer. Okay. Between your desk, your room, and your car, which would you clean first and why?
I would clean my desk first because we sit in a fantastic open environment. Actually, it looks very much like I joke. Everyone says it looks like a designer furniture store. It's just it is quite comfortable, and so knowing I share a desk with anybody, really, I would clean my desk first, and then I would clean my car because again, I spend a lot of time. I at times used to spend lots of time in my car.
I thought your car might be the messiest, but no, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for having a clean car. Well, that's awesome.
I also have two small kids, so sitting on fishy crackers probably is not that enjoyable for people when they come in.
No, I don't like to sit on fishy crackers myself. Well, anyways, thank you so much. I know you're busy. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today, and so proud of you for this new role, and you're going to do amazing things. So thank you.
Thank you, Lawrie, so much for having me on.